Welcome to Carousel. I'm your host, Scott Albertson. This gentleman, there's a belief out there, so to speak, I've heard in the past, that men can't multitask. And this gentleman defies that belief. He is an author. He is an educator. He is a director of one of the music programs at Sacred Heart University in Fairfield, Connecticut. He's also a musician, guitarist. He's a composer, a band leader. He's also a dad. He's a husband. And you're going to hear his music, and you're going to fall in love with him. So welcome to Carousel, Joe Carter.
Thanks, Scott. I got tired just listening to that. You left out I have two dogs, too.
Oh, you have two dogs, okay. And he walks the dogs.
My wife felt I didn't have enough to do, so we got two dogs.
Okay. And when he's home, when he's not out performing and touring, he does the dishes a couple times a week.
Right. More than a couple times a week.
Right, exactly. So thank you for being here, Joe.
Thanks for having me.
Joe, I first met in the fall of 2011. I was at a concert that you gave at Sacred Heart University, and it was with a trio, and you were premiering some of your new music off the new CD that you have.
Right.
And I don't want to forget this because it's very, very important. You can find Joe's music on www.joecartermusic.com, and this is his new CD, which is called Both Sides of the Equator. So we're going to be talking about this tonight, as well as Joe's history. Joe is very well known within the Connecticut area because he is a Connecticut resident. He's been playing here for a long time, been performing in the area for a long time, also teaching for a long period of time, but he is very well rooted in the Connecticut area beyond just performing. So that's all part of that wearing many hats, so to speak. So let's go back in the beginning of your career, which I think you started at age 9 because your family prompted you to start taking guitar lessons. I think that's right?
Yes. My first guitar lesson was January 8th, whenever I was 9 years old, whatever that year was. But I remember it was January 8th because I had been petitioning my parents, can I please take guitar lessons? Because I had an older brother who had been playing guitar. And I would see this guitar in the corner of the room, and I would try to play it. He wouldn't let me, so I wanted to take guitar lessons. And they said, you know, my parents were fairly middle class. We weren't rich. They said, okay, we'll give you those guitar lessons as your Christmas present. So that was my Christmas present that year.
Wow. So
I had to wait till after New Year's to actually start the lessons.
Okay.
But that was, yeah.
That's a nifty present.
Yeah, it was. It was.
And that certainly opened a major door for you, not only as a youngster, but also not knowing probably at that moment in time, but that prompted you to start your career.
Yeah, my mother used to tell the story that they had asked me, what instrument do you want to play? Because there might have been some options. And I said, well, was it saxophone? I think I had narrowed it down to saxophone and guitar.
All right.
And they said, okay, which one do you want? You have to take one or the other. I said, guitar. And my mother said, why guitar? I said, well, you can't sing if you play the saxophone. Not
That's
that
true.
Not that I ever started singing,
right.
But that's what I was thinking. I
Sure.
just think I could do two things if I take the guitar.
That's multitasking.
Lessons. Again,
even then you were doing it.
Yeah. So I never followed up on the singing, but
Sure.
I focused on the guitar.
Okay. Through your age 9 and developing through your teenage years and exploring the guitar, and I'm sure in college because you went to school for music,
Right.
It's interesting where that led Joe in the sense of you eventually started working and performing down in New York City, and then you ended up teaching down in New York City as well. That's a little getting ahead here. But some of the folks that you worked with are major players, major artists. I mean, such as yourself, but you have Art Farmer,
Right.
Lee Konitz, Cecil Payne,
Right.
Rufus Reed. I mean, you're playing with heavy-duty folks down there, and that was back, so to speak, in the day when jazz was really flying in the city, was really happening in the city. So maybe you could fill us a little bit your experience.
I just happened to be at that age at the right time. So I was in my early 20s, and you would drive into New York City and hear music, and you would try to get gigs, and you would get gigs. And there was plenty of places that had music.
Sure.
And music won late. I tell people now, sometimes some of the clubs, the music was going to 3 o'clock in the morning.
Sure.
And nowadays, I think, well, 3 o'clock in the morning. And there was a scene of musicians who were happy to play. And I'm not quite sure, I don't remember how I started playing with Art and Lee and Cecil, but somehow it just started happening. And
it just developed on its own.
And one thing led to the next, yeah.
That's what, for anybody in this life, if you're on the right path of your life, and the only one that's going to know that is you, is the individual, but if you're on your right path of your life, like your mom, when you were age 9 and she gave you the lesson and that prompted you to open a door into a significant part of your life, which you actually developed and grew into now a professional musician and wearing all those different hats. But point is that you were saying you had art, you met Lee, you met this one and that one, Rufus, and you started playing with these people and not only getting to know them, but that's what happens when you're on the right path of your life. All these little doors start to open.
Everything clicks.
Yeah.
And you also feel very comfortable.
Sure.
If you're not on the right path, you always have those doubts. Am I doing the right thing? Or should I be doing something else? But I feel that if you're on the right path, just from my own experience, that everything is comfortable.
Right.
And it just feels right. And
exactly.
you know it's right. Yeah.
Exactly. And through your performing in the city, because from what I got out of talking with you and understanding your bio is you were entrenched as a jazz musician.
Yeah.
That's what you were doing.
Yeah.
You're playing with these major folks.
Yeah.
And you're performing at Birdland in the city, for example, and you're performing at major jazz venues in the city and outside of the city as well.
Yeah, I had several musical heroes, and I wanted to be like them. Like a kid wants to be like a baseball player or something. I knew who I wanted to be like. And one person who really always influenced me was guitar player Jim Hall. Mm-hmm. I just liked his sound. I liked his ideas. I liked the way he improvised. I liked the settings. He was never in the same setting for very long. Sometimes he would do duos, sometimes trios, sometimes quartets. He always mixed it up, and I always liked that. And I wanted to be like him. That was it. Yeah.
And the beautiful part of what you do as a human being and also as a musician and as an educator is the fact that you are passing that, what you've learned, what you have in your heart and what you have in your soul, you're now passing that on to people through an educational facility and also private lessons as well.
Well, when I went to college, I once again, I saw my teachers, and I saw how much fun they were having teaching, and I thought, well, I could probably do that too. And I saw that they were performing musicians, and they also taught. So I said, well, this could be a nice little balance. And I always say that it is a balance in my life. I don't think I would want to be just a performer or just an educator, but the fact that I have the two of them, two things going on, it's a nice balance in my life.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I had the pleasure of being up at Bethel about a week ago when you did your CD release for both sides of the equator, and that was with bassist Jeff Fuller and Nani Assis. Yes, because I know Nani from working in the city.
Yeah,
that was a great hit.
That was a nice, and I love playing at that. It's a small pizza place, and the owner has been having music there. I think he told me it's going on maybe 5 or 6 years now. Okay. He's very consistent, and he has some excellent people coming in and playing. And he always has a nice crowd there. The people are very receptive.
He had a very nice crowd there that night.
And they like to come after, in between sets. They like to talk to you about the music and things like that. It's a nice place.
And they came, meaning the folks that night, that was the first time I was ever there, they came that night to hear the music.
Yeah, and they came from, I talked to somebody, I talked to 3 or 4 people who came from the Hartford area because they read an article up there, and people coming from Westchester because they heard about it and so on. So he draws people from all around.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of the cart before the horse. Right. Now, I don't want to skip out the whole 1980s for you because you are performing in the city regularly. You are working with all the folks that we refer to, meaning Art Farmer and Lee and Cecil Payne and Rufus Reed. But then in around 88, I believe it was, you went to Rio. You went to Brazil. Yeah. And it seems to me you never came back, meaning your heart was there. You found your heart and your music, and that just set you on a whole different path.
Well, sometimes people talk about those moments in their lives that everything changes. Or lots of times you see movies where the main character, all of a sudden something happens and they veer off their path.
Sure.
And that's what happened to me. I had through a friend of mine, I was introduced to a club owner in Rio.
Okay.
And he invited me to come down and play for 3 weeks. And I got there, and I was playing with Brazilian musicians, but I was playing jazz, straight ahead jazz, standards and bebop and things like that. And but while I was there, I realized what a great culture it is. And the musicians I was playing with started introducing me to other musicians. And they said, well, listen, you should come out after the gig, come over here and hear this guy play. Or on your night off, come over here and hear this guy. And I started hearing these musicians playing this great music. And I started to, when I got home, I started to try it a little bit. I was really a novice with Brazilian music at that time.
Sure.
And I started playing it, and it felt very natural to me because the music is very guitar-oriented,
Right.
first of all.
Yes, it is.
And it just felt natural for me to play it. And I realized that maybe now it's time to take a little turn. And I did. And I switched from playing a steel string electric guitar.
Right, a Gibson, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Gibson, like my idol, Jim Hall.
Sure.
I switched from that and playing with a pick to playing a nylon string, what they call violão, which is a classical guitar.
Okay.
And I started playing with my fingers. And it's a totally different way of playing.
Sure.
But again, it felt very comfortable to me.
Sure.
And I realized this is nice music to play. And I started studying it more and more and playing it more and more and going back to Brazil.
Sure.
And the rest, I guess, is Joe Carter
It's
history.
history. It's history, as they say. What Joe's referring to, for people that are not musical, so to speak, is Joe was playing real jazz. I mean, he was very in deep, so to speak. He was very jazz-oriented, especially playing those years in the 80s. And I mentioned Brazil because that was a turning point for you, and we just talked about that. So now Joe is segueing to more Brazilian jazz, which is more lyrical, it's more legato, which is a music term,
Right.
which means flowing.
Right.
And it's more beautiful. I mean, bonita, as they say in
Right.
Spanish. I mean,
Right.
it's really gorgeous. So we're going to go to a clip. This sets it up nicely to go to this clip of Joe playing with the gentleman that he's played with for a number of years, a bassist by the name of Jeff Fuller. So why
Yes.
don't you set up the clip for us, please?
So we're playing at an art center in Windsor, Connecticut.
Okay.
And I've played there a few times, but this time I played with Jeff, just the two of us, and we're playing all Brazilian music. And it's a funny thing because Jeff and I had been started out in the mid-'70s playing straight ahead jazz again. And then we met up again after a few years and we both realized we had an interest in Brazilian music. And nowadays both of us play mainly
Sure,
Brazilian jazz,
music,
right? Brazilian music. So this is the clip of us playing a selection or two at the Windsor Art Center.
Okay, so let's go to the clip, please. That's a perfect depiction of what we were describing. Your music, certainly, from an audible standpoint, but also your style now with the nylon string guitar. And you hear that watching that clip and listening. You can certainly get the idea of doing like hardcore jazz or bebop, for example, and what this is now and exactly what we're talking about. A couple items. First of all, JoeCarterMusic.com is Joe's website. You can find his music, certainly the newest CD, which is this, Both Sides of the Equator, which came out this year, 2012. Also, you can find his previous recordings on that website. And a couple of performances that we want to talk about briefly about August before we go on to any other part of the interview is August 19th, you're at the Warwick Jazz Festival.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, in the Hudson Valley.
In Hudson Valley, right. And that's up in Warwick, New York.
Right.
And then on August 21st, you're in Middletown doing an outdoor concert.
Yes.
Right.
Jeff and I've been playing with a vocalist, a female vocalist, who also plays piano. Her name is Isabella Menges.
Right.
And we have a trio, we call it Sambaleza, a combination of samba and the word beleza.
Okay.
Which means beautiful in Portuguese, yeah.
So that's the 21st in Middletown.
Is, right.
Now you can, again, find all that information on JoeCarterMusic.com. Also, you can find it on Facebook because Joe is very good about Facebook.
Yes.
He is, meaning Joe, that rare blend. We talked a little bit about this before we got into the interview here tonight. Joe is the rare blend of extremely talented artist and composer, but also a good business person. And that is a rare item these days. I mean, a person who has to follow through and then...
Right.
Go ahead.
When I first started playing, I came across musicians, well-known musicians, who literally couldn't balance a checkbook. They had their wives do all that stuff. All they wanted to focus on was getting up in the morning, practicing, and going to the gig and playing. And that's all they knew. They couldn't go to the grocery store. They couldn't balance a checkbook, like I told you.
Wow.
They were kind of lost without that other person to manage those aspects of their lives. When I saw that, I realized that wasn't for me. I'm part of society, whether I'm an artist or a bus driver or whatever. I'm part of society, and I need to function within society.
Sure.
So it's important to do all that other stuff too, that we all have to deal with every day.
Absolutely, and wear all the hats.
Right. And nowadays, with the social media, Facebook and such, it actually makes it easier to tie everything together, because with Facebook and these other things, we can reach out to our audiences.
Absolutely.
And let them know about the gigs that are coming up or CDs that just came out, things like that.
Absolutely.
It's a way to communicate.
Absolutely. And you can find, I'm reiterating this because it is important, and being a fellow musician, performer, I respect that of you, certainly, and from a business head, that's important, because Carousel is part of a showcase of support. And so you can find Joe on Facebook, and he is very diligent about posting his gigs and all that, and having video clips. Like when we finally get this interview all squared away and it's already aired, then we put it on the website. Then you can actually link to it, so to speak, and all of that. Joe and I have a little surprise for you tonight, meaning the viewing public, folks that have viewed in to watch us, is Joe brought his guitar, and we're going to do a little music for you.
We are?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
At least I thought we were.
We definitely are.
So we're going to do a little Cole Porter, which we're going to have a little fun with it. And it's a tune that's very, very well known. It's a standard, as they would call it.
I didn't
these
realize
days.
Cole Porter was Brazilian until you asked to do this song, but okay, we can do
Is that
this.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, sorry. So it's a little Cole Porter. Night and day, you are the one. Only you neath the moon, under the sun. Whether near to me or far, no matter, darling, where you are, I think of you. Night and day, night and day. Why is it so that this longing for you's wherever I go? In the roaring traffic's boom, the silence of my lonely room, I think of you. Night and day, night and day, under the hide of me, there's an oh such a hungry yearning burning inside of me. Its torment won't be through till you let me spend my life making love to you day, day and night, night and day. Yeah, Joe. Night and day, under the hide of me, there's an oh such a hungry yearning burning inside of me. Its torment won't be through till you let me spend my life making love to you day, day and night, night and day. Its torment won't be through till you let me spend my life making love to you day, day and night, night and day, night and day, day and night, night and day. Ah, yeah.
Very nice.
That was him.
Nice.
That was him.
Very
Muchas gracias,
nice.
señor.
My pleasure.
That was very hip. Thank you very, very much. All right, I have, you know the song, I Knew You Were Coming, So I Baked a Cake?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? We have a cake for you.
Nice. All
and this
right.
is congratulations for the new CD. And thank you so much for coming on here.
Oh,
you can take this home.
man.
And you know what, Mrs. Carter, you're going to make a hit with Mrs. Carter when you walk in the door.
Yeah, she loves chocolate.
I
And hopefully
know.
the kids will all be
I know.
asleep and just
Yeah.
the two of us can have this. Thanks.
So-
I've yet to meet a cake I haven't liked, so very good. Thanks.
I understand that. I hear that. This is from a local bakery in Norwalk, and also, I didn't want to light it because they'll freak out here, and we'll have to call the fire department and all that.
Right.
So you can do that when you get home. I'll put that in your lap.
Cool.
I learned a long time ago. Part of what you learn as you're going along in life is that diamonds are the girl's best friend. It's chocolate.
That's right.
So I'm sure you two go home and enjoy. But congratulations on the new CD.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being on here. JoeCarterMusic.com, also his new CD, Both Sides of the Equator. August 19th, Warwick Jazz Festival, which is an outdoor concert.
Yes.
And also August 21st, you're in Middletown.
Right.
And there's also other performances. Actually, Joe's got gigs booked through like December. I went on and looked at your website,
Something
which
like
is
that. Yeah.
which is good for you. Bless your heart. And also the fact that you're part of the faculty at Sacred Heart University. He's director of the jazz music program there.
Yeah, school begins in a couple of weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
So go onto his website, please. Find Joe on Facebook, friend him on there, and he'll keep you posted on where he's performing. The difference with you playing from that old Gibson electric to this nylon string is so radically different.
You know, when I first started playing it, it just felt natural to
Sure.
me. You know, I'm playing with my fingers more. It just feels more natural. It felt good to me to play.
Sure.
Yeah.
And with that nylon string guitar, it truly is very beautiful. And it truly does flow.
Yeah.
When I was up at Bethel that night, the people I was sitting with, I had never met them previously. They were from Bridgeport, a couple, and they
You weren't at that loud table everybody was talking
No,
about.
no.
Okay, that's okay.
And I remember the gentleman saying to me, oh, that's so beautiful. It just flows. And I said, yeah, that's what it's all about. It's music. You just
That's
make
the
it
idea.
flow.
It's just an instrument. It has to come from within you, and it's just hopefully it flows out, whatever it is, instrument you're playing, whether it's saxophone or
Yeah,
flute
absolutely.
or viola in this case. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or the human voice.
Or the human voice.
Right.
Or so many, in the saxophone like you
Right.
were talking, or so
Right.
many other different Jeff on his
Right.
bass. Nani, certainly on percussion. So we're going to have to wind this down. Thank you for joining us, Joe.
Thanks for
thank
having
you for
me.
Thank you for being with
It's
us.
been a pleasure.
JoeCarterMusic.com, also Facebook. We're going to close out with track 4 on a new CD. It's called Victor with a K, and that's a original composition, and it's for his oldest son, Victor. Thank you for being with us. Please come back again.